This is a feta blade steak, but not just a feta blade steak, it is the whole roast. And it is the last cut of beef that was in my freezer from the bull we butchered last summer. So I definitely don't want to mess it up.
Big thanks to Kamado Joe for sponsoring this episode.
The smart thing to do here would be to just cut it up into flat iron steaks. But I really want to use it as a cut for barbecue, which means we're going to cook it low and slow. First, let's take a look at this cut because it's really special. The feta blade steak is well known for two things: the intermuscular fat that runs in the meat, which makes it extremely juicy when it's cooked. And the other part is something not to be so happy about. You see, in this cut there is a big piece of tendon, keeping everything together and making this muscle very strong. But the sad part is that it's extremely tough, which also means that cooking it is going to be a challenge. And since I want to cook this barbecue style, I'm going to cut it up into big pieces of meat. I could cook the whole thing and hope for the best, but I really want to give it my all so that we can have a nice showpiece that you can actually share with friends and family in your next barbecue cookout. And so my plan is to cut it up like we do with chuck steaks on a whole chuck roll. I hope that will expose the tendon and maybe I can even take it out, so that in the end I'm gonna end up with the most beautiful and delicious cut of beef. So first, let's square this up. Whoa, the cut's already tough. It's not that this knife is dull, but look at that tendon that runs here. You see that right there? You see this right here? That is extremely tough. And if you don't cut it out for your guests, well, they don't really know what to do with it, and if they bite into it, it's gonna give them a weird experience that they never had before, and it might put them off. Of course, normally I would cut my steak 2 fingers thick, but since we're gonna cook them barbecue style, I wanna cut them 4 fingers thick. That's gonna give me plenty of size to make a nice roast out of it, but still allow me to cook it fully through in about 6 hours. That's way better already. There's less tendon right here, or it's less thick. So there you still see the tendon, but it's less pronounced compared to what it was in the first cut. But you can see it's running all the way through here now. And that is normally a flat iron steak, as well as this part. I'm just gonna continue with the 4 finger cut, and you see it gets better with every cut that I make. And now the final cut, lots of hard fat here. And here we see that this is almost all disappeared. The way I see it, I have 2 options. Either I'm going to cut out the tendon and remove it completely, or I'm gonna leave it in. And if I look at the first cut, it's so super thick, I just wanna take it out. But if I'm looking at the last cut, I'm just thinking of leaving it in, because if I take the whole thing out, I'm gonna end up with those 2 pieces of steak, and I really wanna barbecue it. So the last 2 steaks, I'm gonna leave it in, and in the beginning of the steaks, I'm gonna take it out. I'm just gonna make quick work of it by just following it along with my butcher's knife. And there we have it, 2 of the toughest tendons that you can find in a cow. And with that, I just upgraded these cuts immensely. But there's another problem that we need to fix on these cuts as well. If you look at the amount of fat that sits on this cut, it's a lot. That is a lot of fat. And if you want to cook that down in the barbecue, well, basically you gotta grill it to cook it down all the way through. You know that people trim brisket all the way down till they have a really thin line of fat left over. And if you cook that down, you're gonna hit the sweet spot where the brisket is absolutely juicy and tasty, but you don't get a bite of fat experience when you bite into that brisket. Of course, I'm gonna do the same thing for this cut. I'm gonna trim down the fat until there's just a thin layer of fat left. Now don't throw away this fat, because this is your beef tallow. Now that I got them all trimmed up, there's one more thing I wanna do. And that is cut into the fat cap, because we're gonna roll these up like this. And once the heat hits, this just wants to go back to its original position. So carving into it is gonna make sure that it's gonna be in the shape that we want it to be. So I'm gonna take my knife and cut all the way through the fat cap until I hit the meat and until that is exposed. Of course, I'm gonna season them with the PitmasterX beef seasoning on the meat side as well as on the sides. I'm not gonna put any seasoning on the fat deliberately, but I do wanna see if I can get some in between the fat, because I really wanna maximize the flavor. I think this is starting to look really good and really promising. And now this is open, so I can just go in and do another layer of seasoning there. And then in between the fat, of course. You see, barbecue is all about flavor, so the more flavor, the merrier. I'm gonna take some butcher's twine and I'm gonna roll it up and tie it up. just like that. Spread this out so it's even. I think I might be onto something here, but you be the judge. Just let me know, how do you think this looks? To me personally, this looks amazing already. If I can put this on my barbecue and I can smoke it, and this is going to be soft and tender, I think it not only looks good, but it also is going to taste amazing. Well, really, isn't that just one way to find out? Let's open up the Kamado Joe Big Joe. I'm going to get the grill grates and the heat deflectors out. Put in some fresh big block charcoal, a chunk of smoke wood, and then the grill grates can go back in. I'm gonna close the lid, set the temperature to smoke at 235 degrees Fahrenheit, hit ignition, open up the top vent, and then she rolls. The Big Joe's beeping, and that means it's up to temperature. I need to close the top vent to control the temperature. It is where I need it to be. It's smoking and it's ready for our new beautiful cut of beef. We're actually gonna need a name for this because I'm thinking this is gonna stick. And of course I wanna keep my eye on the temperature inside this piece of meat, so I'm gonna use the chef temp. And I'm gonna plug in a couple of these wireless thermometers. Open up the Big Joe, put our cuts on the barbecue. Oh, look at that. That looks insane. I'm gonna set them straight in the middle. Close the lid and let the barbecue do its job. Now I do want to render down the fat, so I'm taking my carbon steel Kamado Joe pan and I'm going to put the beef tallow in and slide in the pan. Now I'm catching the fat from the meat and I'm rendering down the fat that we trimmed off. And I got big plans with all the fat rendered down. And I'll show you later how that's supposed to work. But first I'm going to set the temperature in the Chef Temp app. I'm going to set the core temperature to 92 degrees Celsius. Start to cook, and that's going to keep track of the temperature for me. Now I'm going to wait for about an hour and a half for the smoke to grip onto the meat. Then we're going to take a look at it and see how they turned out. It's been over an hour and a half, and I want to take out the beef tallow that we created. We got the big pieces of fat melting away on the sides. We got color building up on the meat. So we're heading in the right direction, but I really want to try and get that beef tallow out. So without making it too challenging, I'm just going to lift it up. And there we have it. Smoked beef tallow. Let's see if we can dump it in the honey jar all at once. Oh! Of course, it's actually a good idea to use a funnel. Oh, look at that. We got that beautiful beef tallow. Now, of course, you can use that to fry your eggs in and they'll taste amazing. But I'm going to save this to actually put back in the recipe later on. And while this is an experiment, I just thought, let's do another one. Because I found this. It's called Doña Maria, the base ingredient for mole. And if you don't know mole, it's a base for Mexican sauces. And you can deep dive into it, just go Wikipedia and you'll find everything that you need to know about it. But the interesting part to me is, if you're making a barbecue sauce, there are key elements that need to be in a barbecue sauce to make it an actual barbecue sauce. Ketchup and sugar and Worcestershire sauce are mostly used. But then you can add something to that sauce to make it special. And I thought this time I'd try to make it with mole and see how it turns out. So I'm going to start with a little bit of ketchup. That's about half a cup. And to that I'm going to add a tablespoon of mole. But the way that this looks, it is like really hard and thick. It almost looks like the Australian Vegemite. But it tastes completely different. It's more like a tobacco style of sauce. Then I'm going to add a quarter cup of maple syrup to sweeten things up. 2 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and to finish it all up and match it up with what we're actually cooking, I'm going to use the PitmasterX beef seasoning, about a teaspoon worth. Let's get this out of the way. I'm just going to give this a quick stir for the first mix. There's still a little bit of mole on my spoon. That has to go in. And as I'm stirring, I can see the sauce thicken. The mole is letting go of its structure and it's just going to integrate with this sauce. Okay, let's perform a taste test. See how this turned out. Ooh, oh, that's good. I like that. Wow, it is super, super intense. It almost makes the sauce taste like somebody's been working on this for a very, very long time. Now I'm gonna store this until we're done with our recipe. But look at that color. Our cuts have reached a core temperature of 70 degrees Celsius. We're actually a little over, but I just want you guys to see what I'm seeing. The looks of this thing is now exactly the way I want it. Take a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Mahogany dark red meat. And as you can see, the fat is starting to melt. Roll out some aluminum foil. Put a little bit of that beef tallow on. Put the meat in, package it up, nice and airtight, and let it continue to cook. Of course, I'm gonna do the same thing for all 4 cuts. And I'm back on the barbecue. Let it continue to cook until we have a core temperature of 92 degrees Celsius. And that is brisket cooking temperatures. You want it nice, juicy, tender, and if you slice through it, it should look like heaven. It's time. I got the notification, and that means that we reached the desired core temperature that we're looking for. So let's take these out. I'm going to leave them to sit on my countertop. I'm not going to open these up because they're already wrapped and packed up. I'm going to let them rest as they are for about half an hour. I think it's about time we start opening one of these up and take a look inside. Let's get that thermometer out and take that beauty. Put it on the board. Oh, look at that. That is a lot of bark. And without wasting any time, we're gonna cut straight into it and take a look on the inside. Ooh, that is soft and tender. I think this is one that still has the collagen inside. No, this is the one that we cut out. Look at that. We got the seasoning right here on the inside. That is a magnificent looking piece of meat. We got the mahogany red color right there from the smoke ring. Let's see if I can find one that I didn't cut out, because those are the most luxurious ones. Look at that. Let's cut into it. See, this is the one that we didn't take out, but remember how small that was when we first set it up. Imagine if you would have just left that thick piece in, that would have been taking up a lot of the space within the meat. I want to taste what that's like. That's some seriously tasty food. Wow. I think we're really going to need a name for this. This is so cool. This is so tasty. I just got to do one more thing. And that's get out my barbecue mole sauce, drip it on some of that delicious meat. Cheers, guys. That is some delicious barbecue. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, then leave me a big thumbs up and a comment down below. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.